These fragments, complete in themselves as individualities, yet incomplete at the same time in that they are only embryos of developing systems. This quote holds a paradox at its center, and the paradox must not be resolved, it must be sustained. The fragment is simultaneously complete and incomplete, not sequentially, not complete now and incomplete later, but both at once, in the same form as a single condition. This is what makes Schlegel's formulation philosophically precise rather than merely contradictory. The fragment is complete as an individuality. It possesses its own internal coherence, its own logic, and its own integrity. It does not require external completion to be what it is, and yet it is incomplete as a system. It carries within itself the embryonic drive towards organization, towards relation, and towards a broader structure that has not yet fully unfolded. The metaphor of the embryo is critical here. An embryo is not a deficient organism. It is an organism in which development is already at work, directional, oriented, and alive, without being finished. The fragment in this sense is not a static object. It is a form in motion, complete enough to stand alone, open enough to grow beyond itself. What Gachet draws from this is the fundamental reorientation of how systems are understood. Totality is not a pre-existing structure that fragments approximate. It is something that emerges through fragments, indirectly through the relationships, tensions, and interactions between individualities that each maintain their own completedness. The whole is never present in advance. It becomes visible only through its constituent parts, each of which contributes a perspective that no other fragments can replace. Key idea. The fragment is not a lesser form waiting to become a system. It is already complete, already oriented, and already generating the conditions through which systems become possible. Completedness and incompletedness are not opposites here. They are the twin conditions of everything that is genuinely alive. Fragmentation is often misunderstood as loss, rupture, or incompleteness. This exercise starts from a different proposition. The fragment as a condition of multiplicity, a state of becoming rather than deficiency, as articulated by Philippe Lacour-Labarthe and Jean-Luc Nancy. A fragment is never singular, never closed, never complete. It exists through relation, tension, and plurality. It does not represent the whole, it activates it. What started as two boxes investigated fragmentations as detachment, separation without loss. Multiplicity, more than one, never singular. Relationality, fragments gain meaning through proximity, alignment, and tension. Becoming, an open condition never resolved. And latent totality, the whole is implied, not shown. My model explores fragmentation as the notion that a fragment is simultaneously complete and incomplete at the same time. This is shown through the solid massing and primary volumes intersecting planar elements and spatial tension between solid and void. The site visit felt like a journey through layers of history, memory, and space. We began at the Najjar building, where its fragmented and deteriorated condition immediately created a sense of abandonment and instability. From there, as we moved towards Radio Liban, the experience became more narrative through Dr. Celia's stories and our own observations of the site's details and atmosphere. The surrounding ficus trees introduced a strong contrast between decay and continuity, showing how nature interacts with the built environment. Inside Radio Liban, visiting the studios made us more aware of how architecture shapes sensory experience, especially through sounds, acoustic, materiality, and ceiling height. As we continued through the site, the historical layers of the buildings became more evident, particularly in the transition from old structures to newer interventions. The site visit ended at Sanaya Garden and finally back at our building, where experiencing it only from the outside made movement, perspective, and distance an important part of our understanding of the space. My photo montage explores the site through the idea of fragmentation and spatial rupture. I wanted to show how the urban fabric feels disconnected, so I broke the composition into suspended volumes, isolated planes, and detached architectural fragments. The central vertical black element acts as a dividing axis, emphasizing tension and separation within the site. The floating blue and white forms suggest instability and displacement, as if parts of the site are suspended between the past and the present. The voids between these fragments are also important because they create thresholds, pauses, and potential spaces for movement or interaction. Overall, this montage reflects my reading of the site as a layered, unstable, and constantly transforming, and it suggests an architectural strategy based on connected fragments rather than one solid mass. When does Sanaya shift from a stable public garden into an eventful civic space, and how can this transformation inform the design proposal? Key findings. The site transforms through historical, political, and cultural events. Public occupation turns the garden into a collective stage, and spatial meaning changes through movement, gathering, memory, and protest. My design proposal responds to this site's evolving identity by creating a space that accommodates gathering, movement, and temporary occupation. This site analysis examines how Sanaya Park interacts with its urban surroundings through movement, sound, and environmental conditions. The diagrams highlight strong pedestrian circulation along the site's edges, higher noise levels near the main roads, and the park's role as a climatic buffer that provides shade, airflow, and improved comfort within the dense city fabric. This image shows the proposed intervention placement on the class site model. The DJ booth is positioned at the upper edge of the site to function as both a visual anchor and an acoustic focal point. Its elevated and slightly recessed location allows sound to project into the central open space while maintaining a degree of separation from the surrounding residential fabric. This placement also reinforces the idea of a dwelling as a performative space, where living, making, and public interaction overlap. My design hypothesis proposes a DJ dwelling in the library garden where fragmentation becomes the main design strategy. Instead of one continuous mass, the project is composed of interconnected fragments and suspended volumes. The voids between these fragments creates thresholds, circulation paths, and moments of pause. Movement throughout these spaces becomes sequential and experiential, reflecting rhythm and transition. This project proposes a DJ dwelling as an insert within the library garden, conceived as a fragmented spatial composition that activates the site through movement, pause, and performance. The intervention explores how a compact dwelling can exist in both a private and public spatial experience. Throughout this model, I explored three interconnected hypotheses: spatial, volumetric, and experiential. Spatially, the light blue fragments guide movement through thresholds, ramps, and moments of pause without relying on enclosure. Volumetrically, the intervention investigates the relationship between mass and void, using the two box entities as anchors while the central fragmented system remains porous and incomplete. Experientially, the sequence unfolds through arrival, waiting, movement, and event, allowing the user to gradually discover the space through shifting levels, partial views, and changing atmospheres. Together, these hypotheses test how fragments can produce a coherent architectural experience without forming a closed building. The model is organized through layered planes, vertical elements, and intentional voids that create spatial tension and continuity between levels. The fragments interact through the gaps and thresholds, allowing movement, visual connections, and an open relationship with the surrounding garden. This slide highlights the intentional spatial logic of the dwelling through its annotations. The make, eat, and circulation spaces are vertically connected, emphasizing movement as part of the spatial experience.